This video is going to show you how to win blackjack and count cards. Blackjack is the most winnable casino game, with the house holding as low as a 0.5% advantage with basic strategy and actually able to be beaten with card counting. First, this video will start with basic strategy, showing when to hit, stand, double down, and split. Then we'll look at which specific tables you should play at and how other players at the table affect your game. Then we'll show how you should bet, and finally, we'll look at card counting. If you gain value from this video, give it a like, it helps YouTube algorithm. If you want another game covered, write it in the comments. And if this video brings in over 1,000 new subscribers, I'll make a video on whichever game is asked for most in the comments. First, before we can get into anything spicy, we need to understand basic strategy. Basic strategy might sound like the ground level, but it is absolutely necessary for winning in blackjack, and it is required to be mastered in order to count cards. Basic strategy is derived from the law of large numbers, which is a law of probability, where the more times an event happens, the more that event will conform to its true average. An example is flipping a coin. If you flip a coin 10 times, you might get 7 heads and 3 tails, but if you flip it 1,000,000 times, you'll likely be very close to 50-50. This law of large numbers applies to blackjack, which means it's possible to play a statistically optimal game, which is called basic strategy. Basic strategy is very learnable and is required to win in blackjack. The internet is full of charts for basic strategy, and for the sake of time and boredom, I'm not going to go through each scenario. Here's when to hit, stand, split, and double down. Reference this chart for what you need to do in every situation. The house holds a slight edge in blackjack because of the way the game is set up. The player goes first, so if both you and the dealer bust, the dealer wins. This means with some higher hands you'll have to hit, and with some lower hands you'll have to stand. Blackjack will come with some tough draws where you likely won't win no matter what you do, so it's important to play the odds and to manage your bets. Managing your bets is also important for doubling down. It is necessary that you memorize the basic strategy chart. However, if you're short on time, just divide everything into the dealer's 2 through 6 and 7 through ace cards, hit 11 or less, stand 17 or more, and for 12 through 16, stand 6 or lower and hit 7 and higher. This shorthand form neglects a few situations, so you're giving the dealer slightly better odds, but if you're in a pinch, you'll win more money following this than by just going with your gut. Basic strategy is a science based off of mathematical proof. However, there are some slight variances based off of the table you're playing at. Those variances might be slight for your basic strategy card, however, they are huge for your odds of winning. First and foremost, you want to play at a 3-2 blackjack payout table, never a 6-5 table. 6-5 will ruin your odds considerably. As expected with counting cards, the less decks the better, but even then, 8 decks with 3-2 is better than 1 deck 6-5. It's always better if you can double down after a split, also if you can resplit aces, and if you can surrender. When picking a table, it's a common misconception that the other players will impact your play. Statistically, only your play matters to you, so another player's play does not affect your basic strategy. And in terms of impact for counting cards, you're just keeping count anyway. At absolute worst, if you know the shoe is hot and another player hits when basic strategy says they should stand, they might bust with a 10 and dilute the shoe ever so slightly, though not likely in a very impactful way. That player is also likely to blunder in your favor, and, perhaps more importantly, allow you to make riskier bets without drawing attention. Where the players around you really matter, though, is in hands per hour. The more players at a table, the less bets you can place per hour, meaning less losses, which in terms of comps and perks, such as drinks and whatever else, will maximize your perks. It's possible to get more out of your comps and perks than you would from your winnings. The more players at a table means less hands and bets per hour for you, and also more money coming into the table, meaning more reason for the casino to want you to stay. When placing bets, your advantage lies in being able to split and double down at the appropriate times, also collecting your blackjack bonus, and then being able to absorb inevitable losses on track to inevitable wins. Hot and cold streaks happen, but the long-term odds always work out. Doubling down at the correct times puts the odds in your favor, but if you don't have the chips to double down, your odds are instantly worse. As a rule of thumb, you should never bet more than 10% of your chips on a single hand, or you might be making a quick exit. There are betting strategies such as the martingale system, where if you continuously double your bet after losses, you stand to eventually gain a profitable win. However, between maximum bet limits and long-term probabilities, while this might work short-term, long-term, you'll eventually hit a bet you lose and cannot double, thereby losing everything. Adjusting your bet based off the situation of the table can play into your favor though, and that is done through counting cards. Counting cards comes with a reputation because it is the rare exception where the player can beat the house. It's no surprise casinos hate this, but it is legal. Counting cards is simple in concept, but difficult in execution. When the shoe is high with tens and aces, it benefits the player, and when it's high in low cards, it benefits the dealer. The process is simple. 2 through 6 is 1 point, 7 through 9 is 0 points, and 10 through ace is -1 point. This is simply because as more 2s through 6s are drawn, there is now a higher density of 10s through aces in the shoe, and when 10s and aces are drawn, there's a lower density in the shoe. The more decks there are, the more hands you need to play to lock into that density. So less decks is better, and a continuously shuffling shoe will make card counting ineffective. To properly gauge the density of 10s and aces, you'll want to proportion it out to the amount of remaining decks. That means if your count is +15 with 5 remaining decks, the shoe is less saturated than a +15 with 3 remaining decks. This true count, dividing the count by remaining decks, is what truly matters when deciding when to adjust your bets based off of card counting. It's these out-of-place bets that tip off the casino that you're card counting, but also where you make your big winnings when counting cards. As with anything, it's easier said than done. So to recap, memorizing basic strategy is required. Then, only play at tables with player-friendly rules and make bets that allow maximum duration at the table. Then, if counting cards, focus on your true count. It's important to note that while a few blackjack players have won big, casinos keep the game because the house still holds an advantage. So gamble responsibly. If you'd like another game covered, write it in the comments. Again, if this video brings in over 1,000 new subscribers, I'll make a video on whichever game is asked for most in the comments. Give this video a like, and thank you for watching.